Alright everybody, it's Occult here, and I have not put together a video for all of you in quite some time, so I'm pretty excited to do this one today. As always, I have a tremendous amount of information I want to cover, and so I'm going to be going all over the place, from history to movies, music, symbolism, you name it, alright? And so since I'm going to be moving pretty fast today, I do want to put out another resource for all of you. This is a bit of a secret channel I've had going on called Legends of Light. This is where I've been putting out videos under that are looking a little more into the origins of gematria, of tarot cards, of symbolism, secret societies, all of those things. So if at any point you're feeling overwhelmed or want a little more expansion on something that I'm not necessarily expanding upon, please come over here and check out these videos. They are criminally underviewed for the wealth of information that they provide, as well as just the outstanding resources that they make available to you through the descriptions. Alright, again, never claiming any of this to be absolute. Nothing ever can be, and so with a grain of salt and it all bared in mind, I want to go ahead and get started today. I will put up, as I've said, later on a video discussing more of the channels being taken down. As those of you who are familiar with me know, YouTube suspended my original channel, and then rcloud55 received 2 strikes within a couple of weeks. Again, very bizarre to me, because much like the original channel, these strikes were not over gore, copyright infringement, calls to violence, they were just arbitrary strikes given to take the channel down, and there's a lot of stuff that makes me really uncomfortable about the way all of that transpired, so I will do that video on a later date. For now, I want to talk a lot about assassinations today, and so what I'm going to do is use this baseline of the Nestle Nescafe commercial that played after Walter Cronkite had announced that JFK was dead. There's a lot of conversation about this, and so I want to add my 2 cents and much, much more. Okay, so let's take a look at this, and then we'll really start to unpack everything.
More than an instant to make a real cup of coffee. That's why Nescafe has come up with a new kind of coffee. It's more than an instant. It's new Minute Brew Nescafe. Anybody can make a coffee more instant, but Nescafe makes it more coffee. A new kind of coffee. Minute Brew. Minute Brew Nescafe is a new discovery, a new way to hold in extra rich flavor. So please help us. Let it brew in the cup a few seconds longer for all that extra flavor to come out. In other words, with Minute Brew Nescafe, it takes a little longer, but you get a lot more coffee. If you agree it takes more than an instant to make a real cup of coffee, buy this completely new kind of coffee today. New Minute Brew Nescafe. It's more than an instant, yet costs no more. New Minute Brew Nescafe.
Alright, so doubtlessly a very bizarre commercial to play after the nation had just found out that their president had been assassinated. Now, the most common line of conversation I see on this is people just simply talking about the pendulum and the idea of hypnosis, which is a very common association that we have with it. But in and of itself, I don't feel that that does it justice in interpreting how all of this fits into a much grander scheme and what was really being conveyed in that commercial. Alright, countless layers to it. And again, as we're going here, remember when we're talking about all of these secret societies, so many of them have their foundation in ancient alchemy, again, in which symbols or images were used to represent things that are completely almost antithetical or seemingly absurd in conjunction with the modern interpretation or understanding of them. Okay, so we're going to expand on all of that a lot more later on, but to start out here, let's head over to the Word document. I want you to see I'm starting out with the phrase "a real cup of coffee." This is something that is emphasized multiple times throughout that commercial. Now, I want you to see in starting out here, I've done the coding a little differently than how I had in the past, just in the slight variant that when you see in brackets an S or a J or an E, that it will represent either simple English or Jewish gematria, the values for it. And so with that, take a look here. So we're looking at the simple value of 501 before we're going to get into the Jewish value. And you see it comes up with the Federal Reserve Bank and the Trilateral Commission. Now, there is so much work, wealth of information on all of this already. I'm really not going to go into it at all. I will leave you some links if you are not familiar with these two absolutely massive titans in the world and how they are shaping and controlling everything. Obviously, the Federal Reserve Bank, an independent body that presses money for a nation, is something that you want to pay attention to. And once you read into the Trilateral Commission and see how dirty all of that water is and those hands are, you should be much more concerned. Okay, so I'm just going to leave those for you because, as I say, so much has been done on them, but it is interesting they come up. Now take a look down below. When we invert this number, again, inversion is a very common practice in this occult coding, you see we get the number 105, and it's an interesting number all around. If we take out that 0, it's the number 15. That's the devil card in tarot. I recommend you go check out some of the Legends videos, as I've talked pretty extensively about that card. And even if you look at the Jewish value 501 and you take it out from there and get 51, that represents the 51st hexagram, I believe, Khan, which is the fiery part of fire. So a big deal either way you cut it. Okay, but now take a look here, because the Jewish value for the inverted 105 gives us reference to things such as Feds and Kabbalah. Now, for those of you not familiar with the Hermetic Kabbalah, I just want you to see here as an underlying philosophy and framework for the magical societies such as the Golden Dawn, Thelemic Orders, Fellowship of the Rosy Cross. Okay, this has immense connotations in being connected with the Rosicrucian movement. And I also want you to see, again, these references to the Qliphothic Kabbalah. That is the inverse of the Tree of Life, which is typically represented. Okay, if you just take a look here, this is one representation that you see going around of this tree. There are 22 pathways said to connect it, 22, an immensely important number. And so before I get into that, though, take a look at the simple value here. Again, still on the inversion, you see Zionism, sudden death, and messenger. Remember, we're looking from a real cup of coffee, right? This commercial coming on after a sudden death was reported to us by a messenger. Okay, you then see reference to suffering and Qliphoth as well as masonry. Now, so to go back here, I want you to take a look here. If you're not familiar with what this tree represents, I'm just going to pull down to the bottom. It's said to be unnatural force of the universe which drives people towards death, self-destruction, and suffering, because this is what the Qliphoth craves as food, okay? And so food obviously is a representation of energy, and so that negative emotion, that fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty, all the things that people worry about, that is what is said to feed this negative field of energy, okay? And so again, just very quickly, 22 as a master number, you see representing the spiritual master builder, okay, and having just immense importance tied to it, okay? So go ahead, familiarize yourself with that. Again, there are countless layers to all of this, but going back now, let's look at this phrase vitriol, because this is absolutely a keystone thing to come up in coding here. And so what I want you to know is that the phrase comes from Crowley's Book of Thoth, in which he is discussing, I don't want to say it comes from there, but you can absolutely trace it to there. And I have that book right in front of me here. I don't have a PDF for it for you, but I do want to read some on this so you can really see the massive importance of vitriol. Okay, so now, in this card, this is the art card, and this is a continuation of the Lover's card, number 6, okay, also of immense importance. is foreshadowed the final stage of the great work. Behind the figure, its edges tinged with the rainbow, which has now arisen from the twin rainbows forming the cape of the figure, is a glory bearing an inscription, Visita interiora terri rectificando in Viennese occultum lapidum. All right, so you have to pardon if my Latin is butchered there, but what that translates to is visit the interior parts of the earth. By rectification thou shalt find the hidden stone. And the initials of that phrase are vitriol. Okay, and so this is said to be the universal solvent, also known as the hidden stone or called the universal medicine, sometimes described as a stone and sometimes as a powder or a tincture. Now, I think that is incredibly important because, again, this is from a coffee commercial, all right, a powdered coffee, and you see this reference. Now, the initials of the alchemical model given above form the word vitriol. Yes, this has nothing to do with the sulfates of either hydrogen, iron, or copper as might be supposed from modern usage. Okay, so this is very important. I absolutely recommend that you read up more on it. Now, what I want you to hear here, the counsel to visit the interior part of the earth is a recapitulation on a higher plane of the first formula of this work. Okay, he's talking about this earlier. Again, it's the lover's card largely. But what you see here is the important word in the injunction is the central word rectificando, and it implies the right leading of the new living substance in the path of the true will. Okay, so now this is very, very important. Remember that phrase, true will, and again, just thinking about leading the world in that direction and what we saw connections to: the Federal Reserve, the Trilateral Commission, the Kabbalah, the Qliphoth, Zion, all of those things, and then you see vitriol at the end. That's a very, very big deal. Okay, now moving forward here, I want you to see, so now we're going to look at the Jewish value for 501. So Jewish value for it, you see the camera cannot lie. I don't want to go into Antiochus because you can read up on him, and there's more I want to expand on. So look here, you see also the goat of Mendes, crosshairs, bed of pink roses, as well as medical misdiagnosis and the blessed silence. Now, medical misdiagnosis can obviously be applied to the autopsy of JFK, but bear in mind the goat of Mendes and on a ritual, because I'm going to come right back to that in just a minute. But I first want to get this out here for you. The English and simple values here are the same as the brothers. Now, this is a variant name of the Lovers tarot card, and I'm going to do another video that focuses primarily on the concept of love, so I don't even really want to breach it too much here. But notice that simple value of 138. I want you to think of the Misfits. We are 138. We'll get there. But take a look down below, because you see Donald Trump, and I want you to bear in mind the 4 and 2 from the D and T when we reduce them down, and I'll expand on that in just a bit here. But see as well, Master Mason behind the 11. Great architect, okay? Looks can fool, 911 call, all of these concepts. I want you to see down below here for the number 11. You can see this seems to have been a type of a number. Then evil reputation among all people. Kabbalists contrasted it with the perfection of the decad, and so you can see 11 is the essence of all that is sinful, harmful, and imperfect. Okay, so they say that the 11 contrasts the 10 that is seen on the Sephiroth, the upper part of the tree of life there, and so therefore represents everything antithetical to the light, the positivity, so on and so forth. Now, let's take a look here at the goat of Mendes as our next point, and is really going to segue us into a whole nother frontier here. Now, as you can see very clearly at the bottom, this is designed by Eliphas Levi, very, very prominent occultist. For those of you not familiar with him, you should absolutely read up on him if you are interested in the occult and its evolution over time, because he was absolutely a pivotal figure in it. And so taking a look look back here at the Goat of Mendes, I actually want to pull up this site for you up here just so you can see that he talks about how it is supposed to be a depiction of the absolute and symbolic form, and again, that is because you see male and female qualities as well as beast. You see mythical, you see real, you see spiritual, okay, everything coming together, the opposing crescents, okay, all of it in there. And so saying that that unity when everything is connected is, you know, really what he's getting at there. But now what's so interesting is when you put it in contrast to this here statue that was made by Horatio Greenough and was put out in celebration of, as you see here, the centennial of George Washington's birth. And so that means this was put out in 1832, okay? And what's so interesting about this, not only in that it looks very similar to the Goat of Mendes, we'll show you some side-by-sides in a bit here, but it was met with controversy, but not from what you would think, okay? You see here that many found the sight of a half-naked Washington offensive and even comical, and so this caused them to move this statue several times until it was finally ended up in the National Museum of American History, all right? And so it's a very big deal. I feel that it was moved to so many places. I'm sure that absolutely served a purpose for when it was there. So here's a side-by-side somebody has put together. It's Madonna on the end performing, and then you have your Goat of Mendes, Greenough's Washington, and that is the Magus card down on the end over there, okay? And so again, you see all of these elements just doubling over, all at play, and again, very hard, I think, to make an argument that it is purely coincidental. Now, what is also interesting is, as I showed you, this was put up in 1832. Looking back here to Eliphas Levi, you see he was born in 1810, which means that in 1832, when this was put up, he was the age of 22, okay, the master builder number. So that is a very big detail, as subtle as a detail as it may be. It is absolutely paramount from where I stand. Alright, so now let's go back here though and take a look because this statue is called Enthroned Washington, and so that is 9 and 10 letters respectively. If we were to just add that, we get the value of 19, which is the sun card, okay? There's a lot that could be said there. Ultimately, this is what I've come to believe all of this is in reverence towards is in fact the sun. Also worth mentioning, E and W both reduced down to 5, giving us a 55. Again, this is something I talked about till I was blue in the face. I even named my second channel after that number, okay? Now just take a look though now at the Jewish value here for Enthroned Washington. Ancient order of Bavarian seers, dictated by authority. Jesus is the serpent, keys to the mystery, and a war zone. Okay, phenomenally interesting concepts there. Again, if you're not familiar with them, research them out. I have to move. You see the English and simple values are the same as John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Now, how absolutely mind-blowing. Let's keep going here, though, because I want you to see I can draw much more bold-faced connections. So we get these ideas of Fraternatus Saturni, okay, the fraternity, the brotherhood of Saturn. We'll talk about that later. MK Ultra mind control, obviously a huge concept. The moon and the lovers will come up again and again. The paths of these two cards are even referenced in the values for skull and bones, which we will get into later on here. You also see these ideas of he's the devil in disguise. Okay, remember this is coming up for Enthroned Washington. Okay, so gematria of the Qliphoth, spirit of Antichrist, as well as Sodom's destruction, and 2018. Now, what I will talk about more later on here is how the coding for Antichrist, I feel, is one of their codes within a codes. Again, Antichrist is made of two words starting with A and C. That's 1, 3, as in 13, like the death card. Also could be viewed as a reference to Aleister Crowley, but I will expand more on that later on, okay? And I feel just the Sodom's destruction in 2018 is something interesting that comes up from all the way back in Enthroned Washington. Now, Let's take a look here at George Washington Greeno, because this is another way that this statue is referenced. Now, I want you to see here the first thing coming up, divine word, as well as the divine law. You see another reference to Federal Reserve System, United States government, and whispering to the nations. Okay, now all of it very troubling. Now, the English and simple values down here. Take a look at this reduction I've done here for you, where I have added 1 and 7 to get 8, and then multiply it by the divine number there, 22, equaling 176. Alright, so again, more references to the Federal Reserve, black magics, goat head, universal law. If I can fit it in, I want to talk about the cigarette smoking reference because I think it is phenomenally interesting. But moving forward here, just take a look. These are the actual English and simple values for it now. You see the manifestation of truth, as well as Martin Luther King Jr. and death's sinful corruption. Now, I'm going to tie in MLK to all of this in a very fascinating way. But before we keep moving here, check out Horatio Greeno, okay? You see is the mark of the beast, Olympians, which I think is very interesting, especially next to Great Sphinx, because he designed this statue to be similar, supposedly, to the great statue of Zeus, formerly hailed as one of the wonders of the world and lost to antiquity, but also with the Great Sphinx, another wonder of the world. But take a look here. You also see is the truth, original murderer, see the masterpiece ion that will come up again, and by the hand of Nema. Now this is important because right above here in George Washington Greeno you have divine word, okay? And so some of you may see it already, but let me walk it through still for if you're not quite catching it. You see Nema. If you're not familiar for it, this is the National Emergency Management Association. You see representatives from all the states, all the territories, and these are the supposed emergency management professionals who are to prepare us for what to do in case of massive disasters, emergencies, or threats to national security, okay? As of today, it is the last day of their mid-year forum, as you can clearly see here. Now, take a look at the word Nema, since we've got it up on the screen like this, and when you invert that word, it is very clearly Amen. And so that is very nerve-wracking to me, because you see divine word and then by the hand of Nema, right, which happens to be an inversion of the divine word, all right? So very troubling stuff there as far as what they could very likely have their hands messy with as well. Take a look at the English and simple values, that 1116, the easy math there, 111 times 6, 666, very important to see how that comes up with the mark of the beast and everything we've detailed so far. But also know that it's the same as While England Slept, which is a book originally written by Winston Churchill. I'm going to talk about this more a lot later. But then that was actually the basis for the one book that Kennedy published as well, called Why England Slept, and we're going to talk about all of that. But now let's really crank in. I know we're 22 minutes in here, and I haven't even really gotten into what I want to talk about. So let's look at this bit here, because I feel is absolutely crucial to bear in mind as we're moving forward. So this is Cronkite reporting, you guessed it.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Alright, so it's important because he starts out with 1 Central Standard, says 2, and then about 38 minutes ago. So 1:38, okay? Just like the simple value that we got in a real cup of coffee, which I was pointing out to you. But also, very importantly, let's take a look here at this Misfits album with the song We Are 138. And how do you explain that to me? Alright, because we're far beyond, alright? So if this is overwhelming you, don't think I'm reaching, because I'm going to make this airtight as we move forward here, okay? And so let's just check this out here. The Misfits, okay? You see the Jewish value. If we inverted it, that 744 is the same as I love you. And Harpocrates, okay, the god of silence. Again, I'm not going to go into that in this video. I'll go into it in the love one most likely. But take a look here at the Jewish value, 447, because you see a reference to simple gematria, as well as atrocities, mainstream media BS, and a club of Rome. Now, I'm going to get to that in just a second, but take a look here. The English and simple values are the same as Nestle, Nescafe, okay? The commercial, that is who put that commercial on, right? What do you see? Seal on forehead, breaking news, brotherhood, wound up dead, gloom and doom, okay? Not a coincidence. How wild. Now take a look here at the Club of Rome. For those of you not familiar with this organization, I believe we've got something here for you. So take a look here. Even though it says to have it in place by the year 2000, just because it's 2016, do not think that this organization is automatically null and void, okay? So you have this idea of them developing a plan to divide the world into 10 regions or kingdoms, and then you see here in 1976 the United States Association of the Club of Rome was formed for the purpose of shutting down the U.S. economy gradually. Also, one of the major goals of the Club of Rome is to reduce the world's population by 2 billion people through war, famine, disease, and any other means necessary. Okay, this is just a really amazing article on here. I know it's short and brief, but it's very powerful. You see, they want to create a system of world government and eliminate sovereignty in order to fight global warming and terrorism, both invented as the Club of Rome suggested. With the help of the corporate media, the Club of Rome will crank up the propaganda about climate change and eventually impose carbon taxes on the American people, a scheme that may eventually lead to the near complete reversal of hundreds of years of technological progress and man's return to the Stone Age. So that part I feel could be a little dramatic because I don't think it's going to be that reversion, although that would be an interesting part, because in dissolving everything that's been manifested and reducing everything to nothing, the silence, because everything that is created is seen to be as a taint, that could indeed be something interesting, okay? But now let's keep moving here, and so I want you to note that I couldn't find the date, the actual number date for Club of Rome being founded, just that it was April 1968, so I put it in as 4168, and that was 1,593 days after the JFK assassination that this club was founded. So that's very important. Take a look here because it breaks down as 4 years, 4 months, and 11 days. 44, very crucial. I'll talk about it more in a minute here. 11 we already expanded on, but take a look because down below here I have written out 1593, just like this right here. And you see this idea of World Bank. Now, what was it just stated was one of their huge goals there, right? To shut down the U.S. economy. You see tons of evidence in the idea of 1886. Now, why this is so crucial to me, and especially because you see down below reference to New World Order, the Royal Secret, Number of the Beast, and secret societies, is because 1886, according to the Book of Thoth, is when the Order of the Golden Dawn was founded, not in 1888, as the internet would lead you to believe if you go to look it up. So I have it in front of me here, page 7. Dr. Westcott wrote to her, and with her permission, the Order of the Golden Dawn was founded in 1886. All right, so all of that in conjunction, absolutely crucial. Okay, see here, reduction. 44 times 11 is 484. You can look into it. I've rearranged it to do 44 times 8. That's 352. Again, messenger, funeral, the global elite, criminal mischief, and he who rules over all government, right? The ultimate plan of those organizations. Now, let's go back here, because you'll see that the label that this came out on, and if you read up on it at all, they didn't put it out on a major, they put it out on Glenn Danzig's label, Plan 9, which you see referenced in a number of ways as either Plan 9, Plan 9 records, so on and so forth. Of course, variance being one of the most crucial aspects to looking into these codes. Okay, so now take a look here. We've got one variant here, just outright Plan 9 records, all spelled out. out, you have reference towards Someone in the Dark, House of Death, Klapothic Tree, and the Saint of Death. Okay, take a look down below. The English and simple values, you have a reference to gematria and anagrams, as well as 7 is the key and 22nd. Now remember, that is the day that Kennedy was shot on. You also see the idea of the camera cannot lie, dangerous cover, and Kabbalistic tarot. Now, 7 is the key. It's a very interesting phrase, I think, that comes up because let's see if I can. So on Crowley's Mark of the Beast symbol itself, that's this guy right over here, you have the 7 points. And there are also 7 points on the seal of Babylon. Again, very, very important in all of this. So please familiarize yourself if you have not already. Again, check out the Legends video. There's a lot of stuff on those cards that are affiliated with those. But again, all of this coming back to Kabbalistic tarot, integrating these systems to peel back the layers. Now check this out. Plan 9 Records, one of the ways you see it written on that page, you have reference to Hunter, lone gunman. What did they say Lee Harvey Oswald was? That made no sense. A lone gunman. Bunch of lies. 1 hour, okay? He was alleged to have been caught about 1 hour after the shooting, okay? You then see down below, mystery, North America, John Kennedy, dark deception and hypnosis, okay? All just tremendously fascinating. Take a look down here, Plan 9. I want you to just see you have the ideas of attack, Neron, okay? This is one of the most classical representations of the Antichrist. I will expand on that towards the end. See here as well, face facts, as in face reality, misleading, shaping, altered. Down below the English and simple values, you see the devil, of course, very interesting because it's 510, again dropping the 0 and inverting, that is 15, the devil card. You also see crucify, violence, hail Satan, CBS News, remember that is who Cronkite was working for, as well as Dan Rather, that's who reported this. You see falsehood, as well as blackout and curses. Now again, we are 138, as I told you when I first got into this and showed you Dan Rather's little bit there about 1 o'clock about 38 minutes ago, a clear reference to 138, a song on this album. Again, if you there's that cover for you again, if you still want to try to write it off as some sort of coincidence, excuse me as I toggle here, it has been so long, I'm trying to make sure this is nice and clean for you, as clean as can be. So in any case, take a look at this. We are 138, spelled out the way it's said, and I want you to see owned by Saturn, this idea of love is the greatest energy. Again, I don't have the time I want to go into that today, but I do want you to see the importance of Saturn. Crowley leaving behind the Brotherhood of Saturn, which is very highly connected or similar to a lot of concepts found in Freemasonry and Thelema, and just all revolving around the same idea of the mastery of occult knowledge, as you see here, following axioms such as above, so below, truly understanding those. Remember, that axiom is at the center of the Lover's card. I will make that video, I promise, but you see the Brotherhood of Saturn incorporates 33 steps to achieve the full spectrum of enlightenment, similar to Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, who also incorporates 33 degrees. Alright, so this is just important for you to see that 33, that number coming up again and again. Now take a look, the English and simple values down below here. You get simply the gold egg of the Aeon of Matt, and I'll show you the screenshot in just a second here. These are the numbers for it, which we'll soon see all spelled out, but reducing them down, this is very important because again, 6 times 55 gives us 330, dropping that 0 off gives us 33. Alright, and then so taking a look through this here, you get this endless loop on this phrase coming through, so very peculiar detail from where I stand. Alright, so now take a look at this. We are 138 as actually written there. Now very interesting, because you see terrorist group, the Illuminati, Antichrist, as well as living sacrifice, and the driver. Now keep moving because you have devil, again, narrow, the number 6, again, the lover's card, NWO, an anagram for now, and then you also see stage. Now NWO, when we reduce those letters, it's 556, again, 55 times 6, just like above there, is 330, or that 33. So very important that all of this connects through. So feel free to look through on Bullet here. That's the actual name of this EP, but this song is the lead song, has the same name, and the big line in it is "Ride Johnny Ride." Now this song is talking about Texas is the reason that Kennedy's dead. It's talking about sexually molesting his now widowed wife, and a whole bunch of other very graphic and violent concepts. Now, Ride, Johnny, Ride. Go ahead and sift through this right here because it's just a bunch of variants on how you can look at the numbers that you get from RJR, that 919. So look at those variants there. It's very interesting. Now the Jewish value is the same as While England Slept. Okay, now we're getting there. This is the second time this has come up, but it's a very important book. Now look at the very first thing. True will, okay, just like the vitriol concept that we saw in the beginning, all right, the guiding by true will, okay, to make it go in the direction that is intended, all right, by that higher power. Now keep looking here because you see reference to the Tower of Babel, Royal Ark Masonry, as well as New Age occult and, lawless deaths. Now down below, the English and simple values, again, this is a major point because they are the same as solve et coagula. Now this is what is written on the arms of the goat of Mendes, and this is also a central concept in the lover's card. Okay, so anytime this thing comes up, it's an absolutely monumental deal to see what is going on. You see tree of life and death, calculate the beast, and tarot card reading. Alright, so now we'll come back to all of that more later on. I want you to see here, Masturbate Me. Again, this is another song off of that album, and you see the 2 M's it has, that's that 44, and so in multiplying the Jewish value 6 times 44, we get the number 264, which has a simple value of 44. So finally I'll be able to expand on that for you here, but before, take a look here. You see 4 horsemen, and again, this can be in reference towards that first article I left you, the 4 horsemen of banking, as well as the Scottish Rite, secret societies, America Babylon, the number of death. Okay, and so take a look, that English value of 828 and the simple 138 is the same again as a real cup of coffee, and the brothers, so again you see the master mason behind the 11, great architect, okay, all of that right up there for you. And so let's take a look here at the English and simple of 264 and 44. You see the ideas of kill, faith, hope, magic, Yod, and so Yod, that is the path of the hermit. That is very important in conjunction, especially that we're getting it from a reduction of masturbate me, because the card represents sperm and the origin of it's a very compact card, which I again don't have time to expand on today, but please research further because it is very fascinating. Now let's keep moving here. So the Misfits Bullets, the full release title there, check out Go Forth and Conquer, Study, movie that will be very important in a moment, as well as in the is the epitome of arrogance. And so why I feel that to be so phenomenal is because of all of these connections I've shown you, and on the front here is just the most brazen mockery of a just massive plot of assassination carried out by very likely our government, a government bigger than it, what have you. Okay, so take a look there at Misfits if you want to. The reductions are very interesting on it, but what I want you to see, okay, excuse me, I'm getting ahead. So Misfit Bullets, again, the English and simple values, same as Hollywood Babylon. That is another track off of this EP. You see reference to Martin Luther King, catastrophic lying, he who is a Zionist, and the G of Freemasonry next to subliminal messages, social perversion, so on and so forth. And now, the G in Freemasonry, typically, they say it is representative of geometry, because that is the foundation upon which everything is built in accordance of, right, this and that. And so also it's very interesting because we saw 7 is the key earlier. G happens to be the 7th letter. Now, I know on these on these emblems, on these symbols up top here, is usually a lot of different things, and on this one, in a number of them, this is very common to see this hash through here, and I want to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up really quick. Just because in Enthroned Washington you saw a reference to cigarette smoking, and so I just want to show you very quickly here, because no smoking signs have that same line through them, and it's arguably the biggest representation of, we see of that everywhere, because you can't smoke anywhere. So take a look here at no smoking sign. The English and simple values, you have reference to September 11, as well as One World Order, Annuit Coptis, the White House, Secret Society, Lucifer's number 326. That happens to be JFK was shot on the 326th day of the year, and so there's a lot that could absolutely be said about that. And so let me just jump back up here though, because I don't want to get too far ahead of everything and lost in the code here. So now take a look here, because it's very interesting. We saw that Martin Luther King came up in all of this, and so I want to show you in, gosh, you know what, I guess before that, one last thing here, because this is very important in looking at the compass on the Freemason logo. A lot of discussion's been had about what the settings on it, where the degrees are, what that means, and so as you can see here, they're talking about that historically there's no proof of occult association, they're all different, this and that. What I want to draw your attention to is this down here. You see in many jurisdictions the compasses of the Grand Master are set to 36 degrees. Remember that number, and 3 and 6 as 9, while those of a past Grand Master are set to 29 degrees. And keep that number in your head as well. Again, 2 and 9 is 11, so interesting, the two sets that they referenced there for a Grand Master and a past Grand Master are 9 and 11. Again, 9 times 11 is 99, another concept I've talked about very extensively in the past. Okay, so bear all of that in mind, and especially the number 36, because I'm really going to come back and expand on that. Now take a look here. This is Martin Luther King Jr. Obviously, you see he was assassinated on April 4th of 1968. And so now let's pop back over here, and you see that there were 1,596 days, or 4 years, 4 months, and 14 days between the JFK and MLK assassinations. And so now, what on earth are the odds that you get the day that MLK was shot in between them there? Okay, and so we'll expand on that much more in a second, but take a look here. The Jewish value for 1596, just like the days right here, is the same as "and he that sat upon the throne." Now you'll see that later on, but with it, expect the unexpected. History repeats itself. The NWOEU, okay, very important, especially that EU, that 5-3 that you get from that. You also see 444, we'll talk about that later. Deity of evil, and the English and simple values being the same as Beverly Oliver. Now remember, this is the woman who came forward and said that she was in fact the babushka lady, and I'm going to talk about her more later on here, but see that English and simple coding. You see the Church of Satan, divine bloodlines, Aeon of Horus, so on and so forth. Okay, now let's break down this span of time right here. Reduces to 44 times 5. What do you see? 22, right? 220, the master builder number, but without that 0, right? And so take a look here, because peace sign, tool, and I come in peace. Now I want you to see here for the peace sign, and especially because we've seen Nero come up so many times. Let's see if it'll cooperate with me here. Alright, so take a look here. Now, the cross of Nero, now commonly known as the peace sign, did not ever really symbolize that. So the cross of Nero is an inverted cross broken at the anchor and enclosed in a circle representing Nero's vision. Nero believed there would be world peace without Christianity, as a consequence of which thousands of Christians were martyred under his rule. This symbol is also known as the dead man's rune and can be seen on the tombstones of some of Adolf Hitler's SS troops. And so again, very interesting because very popular symbol, obviously, but it gained a lot of that popularity through being on the German love bug, right? I mean, that Hitler's literal Nazi mobile, and that's where that thing got its power from, okay? And so just bearing in mind these overwhelming ideas of inversion that surround and encompass all of this stuff, it is just, and so you see how all of that fits in there. I want you to also see we have reference towards Revelation 13, Riders on the Storm, and Celebration at Disaster. Now, take a look here. MLK and JFK are probably two of the most popular set of initials of all time. And what are the odds that both of them can be reduced to 77 when we go through their numeric values and do the proper multiplication? Okay, so I want you to take a look here. When we actually type out 77 to look through, you see reference to shadow conventions as well as recurrent cruel behavior and aggression. Now take a look down below here, the English and simple values. You have in God we trust, again all over our money, just like Anuit Coptis that we saw earlier, as well as the wisdom of Kabbalah, 121, Lee Harvey Oswald, the secret revealed, nation wreckers, and satanic worship. Now I want you to see why I flag 121, because it does come up in the Antichrist coding. That is the simple value that you get for that. Again, you see there blood sacrifice, Don Trump. Again, I told you to bear that in mind earlier for that 4 and 2 from D&T, and we're almost to expanding on that. You see top secret, Cody London, and so I don't have time to expand on that. These are all people that I feel are marked for something. So let me jump back here. Alright, so that we can stay on the track here and keep moving. So Minute Brew, again, we're back to this commercial that aired right afterwards. And so 4 and 2 are what we get from those letters, okay, just like Don Trump. And it's also very interesting because when we look at Lee Harvey Oswald, you see here that he was 24 and inverted, 42, okay, and I also am going to draw your attention down here so you can see 1 hour and 14 minutes after he was shot is when he was allegedly caught in the theater. And so all of that very important. Let me just stage this down here so we can be sure to get right back on track. Alright, popping back over. So now take a look here for Minute Brew. You see driving safely as well as causes a war and shockingly evil. Now the English and simple values, same as hero of the day, that will come up later. But look at that, because they're 780 and 130. So if you drop the zeros, there are 78 cards in the tarot deck, and again, death is the 13th card, written as the death, which is 2-4, again that inverted 42. So far beyond coincidence. Take a look down here. Television, where did we see that commercial? White House, Rosicrucian, Non-Servium, the Serpent, Black Skeleton. Again, this is from the Death card. You also see the Blood of Man and the Path of Mem. That is the Hanged Man, often regarded as a sacrificial card. And so I want you to see, if you're not familiar with the phrase non-servium, Latin for I will not serve, phrase is generally attributed to Lucifer, who's said to have spoken these words to express rejection to serve God in the heavenly kingdom, alright? And then so it's also come to be used as a motto by a number of political, cultural, and religious groups to express their wish to rebel, and a way to express a radical view against established common beliefs and organizational structures as accepted by the status quo. Okay, so very interesting that that pops up there, and especially in conjunction with the Rosicrucians. Okay, I'm going to leave you this website here. I highly suggest that you come check this out. It is phenomenal blog they put together here. On the superficial level, the rose is a sacred symbol of regeneration, purity, virginity, fertility, sexuality, secrets, and most of all, love. Again, this concept that we touch on again and again. But now check out, in ancient Egypt, you see it was an emblem of immortality, and the rose of the true cross, the Ankh, was the symbol of the secrets of immortality. Again, read through all of this. It is very fascinating. You will see that the symbolism of the road permeates everything from the royal halls of England to Catholicism to the secret societies of the Freemasons, so on and so forth, to an extent where it is not really acceptable to disregard the influence of this system, or excuse me, of this symbol in secret societies. Okay, again, here you see in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Ordo Templi Orientis, in the Scottish Rites, 18th degree is called the Night Rose Croix. Okay, so all of this paramount, okay, especially in considering the reach and the influence of these organizations. Okay, so now let's keep moving here, because we're going to do some variants on this. You see Minute Brew Nescafe, reference to lotus flower. Okay, now this is what the world, and especially Egyptian mythology, is said to have originated out of. And what's messed up in the coding is that you also see this reference to CERN will explode. Okay, and so that is the whole thing a lot of people have been worried about, is this new Big Bang that they're touching on. Now I want you to see this date right here, September 2/9. One of the ways that I've interpreted it is that September 2nd of 2016. Now, let me tell you why, is because 2016, when you reduce it, is the number 9, and then you see September 2, 9 and 2 is 11, so you would have that either inverted 9/11, or 11 times 9 is 99. Now, very big deal there, okay, to think about that. Now look here, you see destructiveness, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and 36-degree Mason. Now remember, I told you to bear that in mind, and because I say that there's no significance of that, yet you see it pop up here, so just keep that 36 in mind, because we're almost to the point where I'm really going to expand out on that for you. Now take a look here. The English and simple values, you have reference to order out of chaos, manifest destiny, I make all things new, as well as the source of evil. You see this reference to January 15th, I feel is worth noting because I just did a video on Tool's music video Schism, which came out on a January 15th. Again, 15th day of the year, 15 as the devil card, and is also the day that Winston Churchill suffered a stroke in 1960 something. But you also see a reference toward the idea of murder was the case, and 921. Again, 21, 2 and 1 is 3, taking that as a reference to 93. Now let's keep moving here because I want you to see, again, remember, so much of this has to do with variance. And so you see New Minute Brew Nescafe. That was the full title of what they were talking about. So it tells you to see TV controlling the world. We'll look at that later. But you also have this big idea of humanity is ignorant of the fact that Lucifer is God manifest. Now we're going to talk about that more a little later, but look at the English and simple values here. You have by this sign conquer, don't worry, be happy, and killed Marilyn Monroe. Now there's a lot that I want to talk about with Monroe. I'm going to talk about some of it now, and then I'm going to bring up the other half towards the end of the video. But now this is very interesting because Marilyn Monroe just so happened to be in a film titled The Misfits, which was released by United Artists on February 1st, 1961, and that was 1,025 days before Kennedy's assassination, okay, that this movie is put out. So now take a look at at the values here. These are the, I believe, the simple values for 1025, but you see May 14th, okay, 14, 1 and 4 is 5, May the 5th month, that double 5. Now take a look, you see Magnificent 11, or the Order of the Illuminati, I Kill the Spirit of the Antichrist, as well as 9/11 false flag. Remember, 9/11, that is a 99. It doesn't have to just be that one date. Very interestingly, something I forgot to mention all the way back up here, this 105, a simple value for it is indeed 9/11, so I think that is something that you should tune into for that very reason. Okay, so now you see the devil of death. Okay, now so take a look at this over here. I think I have a screenshot for you from this wiki page for this, so take a look here at the release dates, the everything, and notice, I don't know, I deleted the other shot of it, but it's 125 minutes long. And so when you're looking through this over here, remember I just showed you right here, it's 1,025 days between this movie coming out and Kennedy's assassination, right? We'll get to Monroe's death in a bit here, but very interesting because 125 is also the simple value for Plan 9 records, which remember we were looking at that up top here. Again, you see 125 being referenced with John Kennedy, hypnosis, mystery, dark deception. Okay, if we invert that number for 521, you see the path of Resh. Remember, that is the sun card, as well as black operations. Now look at this here, because the simple value shows Illuminati has caused many people to have heart attacks. All right, and I mentioned that because of Winston Churchill suffering a stroke and then dying days later. In the midst of many, I could do countless very suspicious heart attack deaths. Okay, but so moving forward here, United Artists, the big production company for this film, take a look here because it's 13 letters total. You also see, remember again, that's the death card. U reduces to 3, A is 1, that's another inverted 13. If we wanted to add both of those, 1 and 3, 4 and 4, just like Marilyn Monroe, okay, very important to tune into all of that. But 828, remember that's the same English value as a real cup of coffee, and the brothers, and a couple of other things that didn't make it into this one. But so take a look here at all of that. I want you to see it has the same English and simple values as Walter Cronkite and Ticking Pendulum. Again, I have not touched on either of those yet, but we're very, very close. So take a look here. You see I Am 666, Masonic symbols, Don't Fear the Reaper, and Serial Killer Blood. All right, so now take a look at 7 Arts Productions, the production company for it. Now there is a lot of divination that I've done here. You see I've rearranged this 1662, so it's 1 and 2 is 3 times 66. Or excuse me, not, and I do times it, but this is for just 366 right here, because I feel it's an important number. So you see a creeping death, as well as a satanic mark and golden ratio. Again, very paramount phrases for Freemasons. And then 3 times 66 gives us 198, which is an inversion, obviously, of 891. And I'll get to this in a minute. But that is the number of days after JFK's assassination that the Church of Satan was founded. Okay, so very interesting. Now take a look here at this 198, because it's the same as beast, ancient, as well as the Amen. Remember I showed you earlier that Amen is an inversion of NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Association, something I feel to be worried about. Now see here the simple value, the Brotherhood seal, the United Nations, the Master Therion. That's a reference to Crowley. You see Solomon's Vault, History Repeats, Corrupt Justice, and the Scottish Rite. Okay, taking 277 and reducing it down, 2 times 77, we have 154, the same as Black Death, the simple value of the Law of Thelema, Queen of Babylon, Satanic Truth, and America the Babylon. Now take a look here, because down below this is the actual English and simple values for 7 Arts Productions, but you see Death of Actress Norma Jean Baker, as well as Metallica Creeping Death lyrics. Keep that in mind. Psychological operations must be killed in this manner, and Comet Elenin the Destroyer. Again, Comet Elenin, just like the Antichrist, I feel is a code within a code that they use to mark things out. Now, take a look here, because I have written for you, Monroe died 551 days, that's 1 year, 6 months, 5 days after this film's release, okay? And so now remember, because this is still going to come up for you here, this 551 being connected to JFK and Churchill, but take a look here, because you see the path of Teth. Now this is the path of Babylon, or the lust card, okay? Path 11, very important. You also see reference to royal, the Illuminati, false flag operation, the illusion, the path of the magician, unprecedented, okay? All of these things. Take a look at the simple value. They sold their souls to Satan for money and power, as well as Christians worship the devil without knowing it, in Psalms 119 verses 120. So I think that's very interesting. I might have it pulled up here for you right below, and so you can just see it's my flesh trembles in fear of you. I stand in awe of your laws. No doubt, very interesting breakdown of that if we were to go into it. Now, so this is TV controlling the world. Remember, we were urged to look into this from New Minute Brew Nescafe. You see here the White House Project. It's always 11. False reality with false God and false paradigms. You see United Nations Agenda 21, okay? No good to have that coming up here. You see the waters of knowledge, and exposing the truth exposes all of the false teachers, okay? So down below you see the English and simples. I smell the blood of a British man. And so why I brought this up is because we had not only the death of Churchill after Kennedy's death, of course, but it was very interesting that Kennedy modeled his book, Why England Slept, off of Winston Churchill's 1938 book, While England Slept. And so granted, this is his thesis. I don't want anybody to get too semantical on me and say it's not a full-fledged book, because that would just be completely counterproductive. It's unnecessary semantics. So take a look down here, though, because I want you to see, for While England Slept, the Jewish value you see does not care about hunger and oppression, devilish behavior. Down below, the English and simple values, that 1110 and 185, huge numbers. Take a look here, World Trade Center, Donald Trump, Secret Art Master, as well as Book of Revelation, Secrets Kept Hidden, The Powers That Be, The Word of Thoth. Again, very, very impactful Egyptian god. That is the book I have been reading to you from as well. And you also see here the masterpiece Ion. Remember, we were told to see that in the very beginning, and so here it is being brought out. Now let's take a look at While England Slept. This is Churchill's book, and notice that Jewish value is the same as Ride Johnny Ride, okay? And so again, that reference to true will and Royal Ark Masonry, Tower of Babel, all of that. You also see England's Most Beloved Man, which was certainly something that he could, I think, put on his resume. Now take a look there. Great Tyrants down below. Remember, 111 times 6, 666. No coincidence in that. But let's keep moving now. So take a look here. Both titles have 3 words that reduce to 551, right? Because it's WES 551. Again, I just showed you that that was the number of days between. Let's see. Let's make sure I don't misquote this very great connection for you here. So Monroe died again 551 days after that film was released, and so again we see it coming back down in this relation down here, the Illuminati false flag operation, again in conjunction with these books, the illusion. They sold their souls to Satan for money and power, so on and so forth. Okay, so now we're back to the Nestle Nescafe commercial. So now take a look at this right here. Instant Nescafe coffee. Okay, the Jewish value of 605. You see the name of the angel of death. Okay, you also see Illuminati handshake down below. This is very interesting to point out, this 114 and then the 19. So I point out, so it's obviously 1140. But so now 1 hour and 14 minutes. Remember I showed you that. What are the odds of that? Okay, that this commercial that played afterwards, and you see, do you see, okay, what I'm talking about here? The odds of that are not high at all. Okay, so now take a look down here for the actual values there. Again, remember that 19 is the path of the sun, and 411 Elm Street was the street that Kennedy was shot on. That was Dealey Plaza. We'll look at that a little bit later here, but check it out. Aleister Crowley, Synagogue of Satan, Star Spangled Banner. You also have 111, and so 111 is really one of the most important numbers here. I'll pull this open for you very quickly, just so that you can see, or so you can hear, that 111 in his full orthography signifies the most holy trinity. Okay, and by metathesis it is thick darkness and sudden death. Okay, so to have that come up from these books, okay, remember Kennedy was assassinated, that's a sudden death, and Winston Churchill essentially died from complications after his stroke. Again, another sudden death, so no mistaking in the potency of that number popping up. Okay, so very important. So take a look. The United States Rosicrucian Order, again, history is bunk, honor the truth, serpent rulers, and all roads lead to Rome. So again, all roads lead to us eventually being destroyed for arbitrary constructs. Okay, now take a look here. Nestle Nescafe, right? This is the commercial that comes on. You see builders, ritual, the concealers, Satan comes, spreading hate and self-deluding. Notice also Nestle Nescafe is at 55. You also see for the English and simple values, seal on forehead, breaking news, brotherhood, wound up dead, gloom and doom. Remember, we saw those same coatings from the Misfits earlier. So now take a look here. The commercial is for instant coffee. That's a 9-3. You see mind controlled, seals on forehead, and sex magic. All right, down below, the English and simple, the path of death, butterflies, I'm creeping death. Okay, that is from the Metallica song that was referenced to mind a while ago. You also then see mind control and Church of Satan. And again, so very interesting, because when JFK was assassinated, the Church of Satan did not exist yet. It came around 891 days later in 1966. I think I've got something for you right down here. So there's where you can see that. Again, as I said, instant coffee is a 93 for those of you not familiar with the significance of this number. Please familiarize yourself with this. It explains essentially in a very clear way what has a lot of different variants of speculation surrounding it. But now take a look at this here for 891. Okay, the difference in these days here. You see Queen of Babylon as well as Lord of Destruction, Tarot Trumps, the Serpent at the Door, Brother of the Freemasons, and Deceptive. You also see these serpents come into your life under the guise of love to cause you misery. Okay, that's a big deal. So again, that inversion there of 198, we did see it earlier, but you're going to see it again here when we talk about pendulum. So think back, I know we're like an hour into this video, but all the way back to the beginning of the video when I showed you the commercial, the pendulum in the beginning is ticking. Okay, this is very important because, as I said, in viewing these things in more abstract ways of symbolism, it's very important to realize that the pendulum is important, but it is also important what it is doing. So ticking pendulum gives us a 27 or an inverted 72. This number has countless forms of importance in that it was the age of Crowley at his death. That is the number of demons reported in the Gotia. so on and so forth. Okay, I want you to see here the Jewish value when we rearrange that 737 to do 77 times 3, it's 231. The Jewish value being reaper, the death, recorded. Okay, what was recorded when Kennedy was shot? His death. Fear and dread, God of hate, commercial, okay, what this is being lifted from, sacrificial, hardcore, end of the age, and find Solomon's vault. Okay, I showed you Solomon's vault in the coding earlier, so we can check that off the list. All right, now the Jewish value for 737 itself, you see history, planet Saturn, as well as hieroglyphs. Remember the idea of interpreting symbols as much more than what you just think they might mean. You also see an image in honor of the beast, the fountain of Hecate, the Aeon of Babylon, and the beast. Babylon spelled with an A is absolutely just as acceptable. It is actually how it is spelled on the seal of Babylon. And you'll also see Gnostic Illuminati. So down below, that English and simple value, 1074, same as Walter Cronkite. Remember who was talking right before this commercial. You see the coding and how everything's set up there. Now, take a look here. We'll look at this in a more straightforward way for you. The word pendulum, right? Jewish value is 559. Again, this reduction, 55 times 9 gives us 495. Take a look here because you see Terminator, Hot Guns, the Church of Baal. Again, if you're not familiar with them, check him out. It's hailed to be a very influential deity. You also see Seal of Lucifer, Sheep's Clothing, tells lie after lie, ruling elite, and the Scorpion. Again, the Scorpion, representative of death, especially if you read the Book of Thoth and see the symbolism connected there. Now, looking at the actual Jewish value, you have in the background, which the pendulum was the whole time, the Serpent King, abominable murder, as well as Illuminati alias, the biblical serpent, illuminator, and all religions are false. So now take a look here for the English and simple values. Again, reducing them down, you see that 198. Just like we said, we'd run across again from 66 times 3. So the United Nations, the Brotherhood seal, history repeats, all of that coming right back up for you here. So absolutely important. The actual values for it right down here for the English and simple, divine plan, serious projects, beasts of death, snuff film, okay, actually recording a death on film. Now take a look here because Kennedy was leaving Dallas Love Field, the airport, on his way to the Dallas Trade Mart, which we're going to look at here, but take a look for pendulum, right? Again, remember that 559, and notice that Dallas Love Field is the inversion of that Jewish value with 955. So if you see here, 13 Illuminati families, private, vendetta, fire lover, the sycophants, all right, people who do what they're told and don't make waves about it. You also see Goldman Sachs runs USA and the Grove, okay, the English and simple values, Freemasonry, other people who were assassinated, Julius Caesar, Tupac Shakur, okay, you see ancient Egypt, Mark David Chapman, of course, who was somebody who was an actual assassin. You see ashes to ashes, baptism of fire, and imperial cult. Okay, so baptism of fire I think is interesting because Kennedy had bullets rain on him from above, and so very interesting connections there. Now take a look down below for Dallas Trade Mart, okay, where he was heading. I want you to see it is a reference to SS number. It's very interesting because remember we saw earlier that the peace sign is on a number of SS graves, and so I think that's interesting as hell. You also see the same reference to imperial cult, something we've seen throughout here, order from chaos, Barack Antichrist, okay, so there's that mark on him. You also see rage and murder and false information. So down below, these values are the same as Mama They Try. This is a Metallica song which will come up here shortly. But take a look down here because you have reference to Judah Iscaro, Skull and Bones, okay, 66. Now remember 6 times 6, 36, that number, I'm still gonna bring it around for you. I haven't forgotten. You see Holy of Holies 997 on the warpath and small sacrifices. So as I say here, 997 really stands out to me. So check this out. Television, love is the all, vision of peace, okay, in conjunction with what I've been talking to you about. You also see this idea of doctrine of destruction and false or misleading statements. So actually writing out 997, you see again this reference to U.S. President-elect Barack Obama, as well as the key to the seals, Freemasons in the Illuminati, the fake sob story, secretive and invisible coding. Alright, so that's a very big deal number. Instead of code to come up in there, again, doing one further step of reduction, 99 times 7, we get the number 693. So again, you see these references to the Aeon of Horus, the Serpent Bloodline, Operation Paperclip. This is where the U.S. was actually bringing back high-ranking scientists from Nazi Germany to work in conjunction with them. You also see does more harm than good. Okay, there's another channel that has this coding, and we got into it over that, and I think the fact that my channel went down serves as huge testament that this does more harm than good. You also see 1%er religion. Now take a look at this. What I really want to draw your attention to here is what this comes up. This is for 693. This is the simple value, but you see what was under Benjamin Franklin's home at 36 Craven Street. Okay, there is that 36 again, and what was under his house? Turns out it's 1,200 pieces of bone from at least 15 people. Alright, and so even if you reduce this down, I mean, they could have picked any numbers, turn about 1,200. It's very random when you consider it. 1 and 2 is 3, 1 and 5 is 6, okay? 36 again, and it's just like those compasses on the seal, and we saw earlier, 36-degree Mason. Alright, and so you have this article for you here. This is from the Smithsonian talking about it, giving you that 36 address, and so you see here 15 bodies found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room beneath the garden. Now, they go on to talk about that this is perfectly justified because it was probably an anatomy school run by Benjamin Franklin's young friend and protege, William Hewson. But does it really, though? In a dark, windowless area, and especially because they talk about anatomy still being in its infancy. But I mean, granted that we still didn't have the modern technological breakthroughs that we did today. The study of the human body and anatomy was thousands of years old by 1776. So this coming from the Smithsonian is I would argue, completely asinine. And you'd have to be just as asinine to take that as what was going on there. And that they just left all these bones to rot and didn't, you know... So much left unsaid there, but I think that is absolutely crucial to have come up, because remember, all of this is coming out of this 997, which is directly connected to skull and bones. And again, that 36 I really feel like is a huge code for unwritten or undocumented or undisclosed positions in the Masonry ranks. Okay, so now I want you to see this as well, because it says, and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. This absolutely happens. You also see organization that makes sure it dots every I and crosses every T. Okay, all of this is meticulously planned and carried out, and so I want you to see here when we invert this number, 693, we get 396. That happens to be the same reduction that we get when we're breaking down Daniel Irvin Rather's name. Okay, and Dan Rather is who was actually attributed towards covering or breaking the story on Kennedy's death. Okay, so now keep going here. I want you to see the grassy knoll. a big point of speculation here in the whole conspiracy. But just notice down here that its English and simple values are the same as Horatio Greenough. Remember who made that Washington Monument that looks like the Goat of Mendes, and While England Slept. Again, that 666 when we do the 111 times 6. Now, take a look right here, because 411 Elm Street, and I think I've got this one for you here some way. I'm sorry. I hope I can get back to the Hecate's Fountain stuff because it's really fascinating. There is a Legends video on it. But so take a look over here. Dealey Plaza, this is where, you know, is officially determined that his assassination took place. Of all the places, 411 Elm Street, okay? It is 15 acres. Which is ridiculous. 6.1 inverted, that is the tower card, which is talking about unexpected events, war, destruction of an old era, so on, so forth. Okay, even in the English value here, 1 times 44 gives us that 44, and everything we looked at with Martin Luther King as well. So now take a look here at the actual values and see here, 411 Elm Street, you see an organized terrorist attack, the white horse rider, and uncontrollable desire to dominate others. Now, chilling stuff, okay? Now take a look here. These are the English and simple values. Golden Dawn Hermetic Order, Edward Alexander Crowley, For Whom the Bell Tolls, all right? The Illuminati Project, Large Hadron Collider Accident, and 777. If you're not familiar with that number, please look into it, okay? So look here. Back to Nestle Nescafe, okay? A cup of coffee. It's what they're talking about, okay? Sex, Neron Caesar, terror, operation, idol of Baphomet, and threatening, all coming up in there. And I think I have it for you in here, the bits on. Yep, so just so you can see, if you're not familiar with Nero, please go through and read these, and you'll see his burning down of Rome, why people hail him as an antichrist, so on and so forth. It is very fascinating stuff. Let me skip back up though so that we can keep moving here, okay? So now take a look here for the English and simple values. You simply see the ideas of lie after lie, world peace, again, backwards, and 111, again, sudden death is what I was talking about earlier in conjunction with that. Now, again, cup of coffee, this is a variant on this. I want you to see Chosen Beast, President, as well as programming. Take a look at these English and simple values. 606, 101, 66, 11, it's a big deal. It's the same as the phrase I'm an American, which I will talk about in my big video on love. If you take those letters for I'm an American, it's 911. That's very interesting stuff. And take a look here again, Crowley, Spiderweb, and if you put the Charlotte and Spiderweb piece together from what I told you, Charlotte's Web was an allegory for it. You should be shitting yourself right about now. You also see division, sorcerer, God's will, malpractice, again, Ides of March, the 1-1, that's the 11, bullseye, graveyard, and Bilderberg. So now take a look down here. CBS News Bulletin. This is what flashed across the screen when they were giving us this special breaking report. You can go ahead and look at that if you want, but breaking this down, 3, 2, 1 equals 6. NB from News Bulletin gives us 7, 6, and 7, 13. That beloved death card once again, okay? You see the dark places of wisdom, the caverns of the Qliphoth. World is demanding bloodshed and putting thoughts in people's heads, okay? Take a look at these English and simple values down here. They both reduce down to 9. Very, very important. You also see that they reference methods of madness, deconstruction, the master builder, signs of deception, and 444. Now, it's important to immediately break this number down. You see the Jewish value, Order of Thelema, head mind control, dualisms, and FEMA camp program, okay? The English values give you very profound figures throughout religion that serve as beacons for people, okay? This is showing you, again, with dualisms at the top, and the fact these are all coded the same: Jesus, Lucifer, Muhammad, Satan's, so on and so forth. That is all to show you it's one and the same. Each has the other in it. You also see this number references killing, the king, as well as war pig. Alright, so now let's keep going here. Walter Cronkite, okay, 5-3 from the WC, okay, so now you get the reference towards hell and Cain. Again, all of this makes tremendous sense alongside all of the references towards Mark of Beast and the brothers that we've seen. You also see this reference to divide, grave, and Teth, again the path of lust. Now take a look here at the Jewish values for Walter Cronkite, and you'll see here, and they shall not break their ranks. So he knows what his role is. You see diabolical twists, the road that leads to destruction, as well as brainwashed millions, and the idea to see and he who sat upon the throne. Now I do want to show you here, let's flip over to Cronkite. Just so you can see, when it said brainwashed millions, look at a lot of the stories. I mean, just the massive stories that he covered. You have bombings in World War II, the Nuremberg trials, Vietnam War, Watergate, Iran hostage crisis, and the assassinations of JFK, Martin Luther King, and Beatles musician John Lennon, all three of which I have shown you coded in this set of research. And so it is just stunning to see how that comes up. Now, look down below here. These English and simple values, the same as United Artists and Ticking Pendulum. Remember, that was the the production company that put out Monroe's The Misfits movie, and Ticking Pendulum, as I showed you moments ago, is from that commercial. So check this out. I am 666, Masonic symbols, cruel intention, serial killer blood, okay, all of that, ending it with almighty tongue. Now, I want you to see for 53, because this comes up a lot. I've been trying to figure out the importance of this number, and so it's interesting. 53 is like if you reduce it as well, it's the initials of the United Nations. But check it out. You see Illuminatus, ancestry, satanic rulers, the scythe, okay, clearly a death reference, infernal deity, and rose behind the cross. Now down below, the English and simple shows you great deceiver and hermeticism. Alright, so very important stuff, I feel. Let's take a look at Walter's full name here and break it down. Walter Leland Cronkite. Okay, so that's 533. That's 5 times 33. Okay, gives you 165. Okay, so go ahead, take a look through all of that, as it has come up already today. And so what I want you to see, and I feel like if I pop back here as well, it's very interesting because he also gave us coverage of the moon landings, space shuttle, all that stuff. So in his full name, it's very interesting that the phrase Stanley Kubrick directed fake moon landing comes up, as well as unexplained mysteries. Alright, so down below, Divine Gene, Archangel of Death, True Holy Angel of Death, and September 11 attack. Remember, September 11 at 9/11/99. Don't think of it as only being applicable to one thing, because that will just lead you down a dead end. Okay, so now very quickly here, because I know we're coming up on an hour and a half here, and I want to wrap all of this up. But you see that Cronkite was born November 4th, 1916. The way that I've reduced all of this down here, you get the idea of 44 times 8, which gives us that 352. Again, this was something that came up earlier in the video. Let's make sure I can pull it up for you again so you can see there in the distance between when the Club of Rome was founded and when Kennedy was assassinated. Alright, so very important that you see that. Now take a look as well here, because he died on July 17, 2009. Reducing that all the way down gives us 7 times 11 for 77. Again, this is something I covered earlier for you in this video. So now, as I also mentioned, Cronkite attributes this story to Dan Rather, which is very interesting because D equals 4 and R reduces to 9, so 4 and 9 is 13, just like the death card again. And if we reduce that down, 1 and 3 is 4, that's the Emperor. It's a government sort of representation in that card, so very important. Dan Rather's birth date, to break it down for you right there, you see October 31st, 1931, okay, reduces down to 55. Very, very important, okay? So look through this. For Dan Rather, you see Beast Mark as well as Double Eagle. For those of you not familiar with this logo from the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, absolutely what we're getting at with that. You also see membership and the death card. Imagine that, okay? So English and simple values, I want you to see Therion, Unity, Success, Alistair, God of War, Death is Fake, and Cliffhanger. I feel like that was in there because it was not immediately reported that he was dead, but went back and forth quite a bit on, you know, updates. And so let's take a look here, because Daniel Irvin Rather, very interesting that just like Walter Leland Cronkite, you have all different letters, but reducing down to having a divine number, 4, 9, and 9 from the I and R. So timesing that, it's 396. Okay, you get reference to The Secret, Keeping Mum, 3-3, Political Scam. All right, the English values, Anubis, okay, God of Death, The Afterlife, Moloch, Dead Now, Beasts, The Event. Check out the simple value, the 33rd degree of Freemasonry, another government false flag operation, President Lyndon Baines Johnson's birth. I'll show you that in a minute. You also see desire to dominate and control others, worship or reverence as Satan as a deity. And just to make sure, because this number did come up earlier as well, the inversion of 693, that number that we drug out of the skull and bone stuff. All right, so very, very interesting. Keep going here. The Jewish value of 1191, you see reversed meanings. This number is the key. Part of that is because if you rearrange this, 111 times 9, 999 is a huge deal to look into, but so please be sure to do that. Again, go check out a Legends video on it, as I did cover it pretty extensively. You also see here it's referencing the Call of the Elevens. Down below, Brotherhood of Death, Concealed Mystery, and Love is the Reason. Now, you saw just a moment ago that this coding referenced Lyndon Johnson's birth date. That was August 27th, 1908. There are a couple of ways you can break this down. Go ahead and look through here for reduction number 1 that I've done for you. Gives you the number of 89, the simple value of which happens to be the same as Dan Rather, God of War, Therion, Alistair, and Secrets. The second reduction for it that you see here gives you the number 899. You see CIA did 9/11. Okay, that could absolutely be referring to the event I am talking about because it's 99. You also see terrorist attacks and spiritual sun. Now, one more reduction on it. You see 8 times 99 is 792. The Jewish value, 93. Paramount, okay, the simple value. Isopesiphy, again, that is the ancient form of gematria as originated by the Sumerian people, I do believe, or Mesopotamia. You also see the Most High, the forehead seal, the evil elite, and unholy flame. All right, so now we're rounding the bend here. This is going to be one of the last points that I want to discuss with you today. I do think it's interesting. Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather both were born in different places, but both moved to Houston, Texas to do a lot of their growing up. And of course, Dan Rather attending Love Elementary School, I think, is very interesting. But here we are. I want to talk about Marilyn Monroe a little bit. Because she's absolutely paramount in all of this. And again, I've been talking to you and telling you to bear in mind the number 36 all throughout, the number 42 all throughout. Again, Marilyn Monroe died at age 36. I think that has a lot to do with what I showed you with not only Ben Franklin's address, but that 36th degree. Let me see if I can pull that one up for you again here. 6th. Okay, so, and that's from the Minute Brew Nescafe commercial, okay, and also a wolf in sheep's clothing, so on and so forth, everything I talked about at the beginning of the video there. But now let's pop back here to Marilyn Monroe, and I want to talk about when she not only sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President, but also the alleged affair. Also very interesting because I have told you to keep these numbers in mind. What are the odds that when you search Marilyn Monroe's death, the two women that appear, their death ages are inversions of each other? You see that, don't you? And that's a 9-9. And then Elvis Presley and James Dean, the two men on here, are inversions of each other. 4-2 and 2-4. That's 6-6. 6, obviously an inversion of 9, just like male is supposedly an inversion of female. Do you see? I mean, this is staggering, the extent that they have gone to make all of this stuff so seamless. Okay, so now let's go before I get to the affair. These are a little jumbled here. We'll start with her singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President. This is one of the most acclaimed events, I feel, in modern American history. You see taking place Saturday, May 19th, 1962. Sings Happy Birthday, Mr. President to him. So let's take a look at what I was able to pull apart from that. So the phrase Happy Birthday, Mr. President, you'll notice two soulmates, the light of the world taken, and rider on the white horse. Now look at this down here. Here, English and simple values for this are 666. Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, having been drugged and disoriented. Remember, she died of a barbiturate overdose. You also see Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil, exposing the satanic lullaby, alright, which this very well may be a certain representation of. You also see, just again, for more and more references to 666 spelled out coming through here, okay? Now, there were 553 days from this occasion to JFK's assassination. Taking a look here for 553, what do you see? Final curtain call, the day he died, the Antichrist. Remember, John Fitzgerald Kennedy in it has spirit of Antichrist, alright? That is no coincidence, okay, that you see that. And you also then have either thin theatrics or theatrics hint, alright? Either way, very interesting. The inversion of that, you see narrow Caesar again, as well as I make all things new from Aleph to Tab, and that is the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and therefore the corresponding first and last cards of the tarot. Okay, so very, very important that you see that coming up there. Now take a look here, because that 553 is the same total that we got when we broke down Walter Leyland Cronkite's initials when we did 5, or whatever we did up there. The 5 times 33 is the same as 53 times, or excuse me, 55 times 3. It gives you 165. And so again, you're going to see all of that come back up again. Scottish Rite, the Crown Snake, Divide and Conquer. Now, one more bit here. You see that Monroe and Kennedy, again, this is one of the big things because Monroe is arguably one of the most influential sex icons of all time. That is what she is most conventionally regarded as. And you'll see here that it is noted that JFK and Marilyn Monroe did have sex at least one time, and it's well noted here. You can go check this out, but March 24th, 1962. So now I obviously want to take a look at that date, and when you reduce it down, check it out, 9-9. No joking, you all. So look at this here. 609 days between the affair of the two, okay, and the JFK assassination. So 609, 6 and 9 is 15. There's that devil card again. 1 and 5 is 6. The lovers, all of this so masterfully connected. But take a look here. Tarot and Gematria, the Tribute and Thunderbolt. I kind of envision Thunderbolt being an allegory in the assassination of JFK because it was a fire shot that came from above and rained down upon him with a loud boom. Okay, so now when you invert that, you see turn a blind eye, as well as is death for the Antichrist, Dead Gene, Marilyn Monroe, the English value, Illuminatus, Angel of Darkness, Love is the Law, okay, the guiding tenement of Crowley's Thelema, Rosie Cross, USA President, Very Messy, and Building a World. Okay, so now one last set for you here. I want you to see that, interestingly, it was 135 days after their affair that Monroe died. She died that same year. And you see that number 135, the simple value, lots of sex, thelemic order, terrorism, over and out, as well as the final step. You'll also notice that when that number is inverted, it is 531. So you again see for sex, the Ace of Cups, number of death, the confirmation, and 101. And remember, we just saw 101 pop up back here. This is not only for will be done, but it is the same as cup of coffee. Okay, so again, malpractice, God's will, spiderweb, graveyard, okay, all of those things popping back up in there. So let's pop back down here so that we can keep moving here. And I want you to see, because this card that comes up here, the Ace of Cups, it is a very important card. So let me go ahead and open up to it here for you. So this card represents the element of water in its most secret and original form. It is the feminine complement of the Ace of Wands and is derived from the yoni and the moon, exactly as that is from the lingam and the sun. Alright, so what's important here, this accordingly represents the essential form of the Holy Grail. Upon the dark sea of Binah, the Great Mother, are lotuses, 2 in 1, which all fill the cup with the life fluid, symbolically represented either as water, blood, or as wine, according to the selected purpose of the symbolism. This being a primordial card, the liquid is shown as water, but it can be transformed into wine or blood as may be required. Alright, and so above the cup, descending, is the dove of the Holy Ghost, thus consecrating the element, and then so on and so forth. From reading on that there, you can see it's very important. Also coming back up here, let's see that number 36 for you. I do want to point out one of the ways that you can further trace this out on top of everything that I brought up, the idea of the secret of 36. And so with that, World Heart Federation, as a lot of you remember, I spent an extensive amount of time covering that. And I do feel like part of it is exactly why they banned my original channel, is because for those of you smart enough to take this all with a grain of salt and get what you can from it, it did make a lot of sense in exposing these people who, again, are based in, I believe, Geneva, right around where CERN is. And again, all of this coming back to the I am the 666 beast, the worst attack. Take a look down below. English and simple, secret satanic sorority, the great master of masters, and the recipe for destruction. Alright, so one more variant on it. Secret of 36. Alright, the letter X is the mark of Lucifer. You also see harvesting sex, the satanic spirituality, and thinks he has the right to murder people. Alright, so now one more down below, the English and simple values. Central Intelligence Agency, the late Marilyn Monroe. That's a typo on my end, not in the matrix there. You also see I'm in the mood for murder, suspension of disbelief, and families on the top level. Okay, so all of that absolutely connecting in. Think back on this. I know it's a long video. You know, it might be bridging on 2 hours here because I do want to talk to you a little more about the Antichrist, which you see I have written out over here. The Jewish value is 44. Remember everything that embodied with dualisms earlier, and the massive importance of that. Okay, so please pause and look through this here. It's going to give you a lot more insight as to what it is that I was getting at with a lot of that. Again, you saw references to the babushka lady, Beverly Oliver, who came out and said that that was her. That was disproved. Go ahead and pause and take a look through all of this. It all does connect all the way through. It is all very, very interesting, especially from where I stand. So I'll just go ahead and get this on the screen for you too, just so that you can see it. You can try to put it all together and see what you can. Alright, so I know this is a very long video. This is a ton of information. I meant for it to be a lot shorter originally, but I kept finding more and more. So thank you to everybody who made it all the way through here, even if it took you a couple of watches. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to look at all of this and see the connections. I'm going to try to put another video out if I can find the time in the next day or so here, but that's going to give us another look at something that might be right on the horizon that it could be wise to pay attention to. Alright, so with all of that being said, everybody, thank you so very much once again. I hope all of you have been well. It's been an absolutely wild world that we've seen developing here, and like I say, just please, please be well.